It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today is the second to last day of 2024. Can you imagine that, John Combest? Second to last day.
I can. We made it through. You stayed another year above ground, Brad.
Yes, imagine that. Imagine that. It's going to be my 90th birthday coming out here soon. Okay, that is John Combest, Combest. Check out his website at johncombest.com. He does this amazing thing every single day for 23 plus years. He puts together this list of all the stories you should know going on in the state of Missouri. We start the show off with this guy right here. What's your name again, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And he does, what do you do? Explain what you do again now.
And here they are.
Well, now you do this. Come on, you do this.
Their stories coming up.
That's what he does. And we start off with...
In third place...
Brad, there's a story from Southwest Missouri via the Springfield News Leader over the weekend that has implications for all kinds of political people all across the state of Missouri. And what happened down in Springfield, Brad, it involves school board elections. So if you're involved in school board elections, whatever part of the state in which you're listening to us today, this story can relate to you. Down in Springfield, there was a conservative group called Truth in Politics that sought to influence local school board elections. Long story short, Brad, they did not follow Missouri campaign finance law. Now, Brad, we'll do a callback to something that you've mentioned several times, which is you have been to these candidate trainings. You have been a featured speaker at the St. Charles County Republican Central Committee's candidate school. And there are speakers there, Brad, that underscore that no matter what office you're running for or no matter what election you're seeking to influence, you have to follow the letter of the law. Missouri Ethics Commission can be total sticklers about what's legal and what's illegal. Brad, this story by Claudette Riley of the News Leader is a cautionary tale for any school board group, whether you're liberal or conservative. It turns out, Brad, that this group was collecting money from donors, not reporting it properly as political contributions, making expenditures, Brad, things like door hangers, things like your favorite stuff, like billboards and such, and not reporting it properly to the Missouri Ethics Commission. This is more than a slap in the wrist to this group down in Springfield, Brad. The group and their attorney signed a consent order that was made public on Friday. The group was fined nearly $250,000, Brad, $249,446 to be exact. Now, if they pay $20,000 within 45 days and they're on good behavior for 2 more years, then the rest of the fine goes away. But there are 5 members of the committee, Brad, and those 5 people are on the hook to pay this $20,000 fine. So, Brad, I think the point of this is, if you're, let's say, a member of Francis Howell Families, a conservative political action committee here in St. Charles County, or you're a member of another conservative school board group, I would reach out to the folks in Springfield who are your fellow conservatives and say, look, what the heck happened? And Brad, before we go on, because I want to hear your take on this, I would also point out the other thing I would be curious if I'm another school board around here. This group down in Springfield got money from some big corporations, Brad. They got $18,000 from Centene. They got $18,000 from Humana. They got $17,000 from another local business. Brad, if I'm a school board group, I want to know, hey, first of all, tell me the pitfalls to avoid, but also, how'd you score that $18,000 from Centene? How'd you get that $18,000 from Humana? Was it a political consultant? You know, $18,000 is a rounding error to Centene and Humana. But if I'm Francis Howell Families, I want a little bit of that Centene cash. I want a little bit of that Humana cash. You know what I'm saying, Brad? I guess the bottom line is, if you're doing this stuff, Brad, and you're in a school board election, this isn't just some backwoods reporting stuff that you can just skip out on. You better pay attention or you're going to get a big fine.
You asked me my opinion on this. I've done this for 2 times now. The Republican Central Committee of St. Charles County have been a guest speaker, and it seems as though I always follow Mike Summer, who is very much politically involved. I believe he was on the Francis Howell School Board for a number of years. Wasn't that correct? Wasn't he on Francis Howell?
I believe so, and his wife was a state representative, Chrissy
right.
Summer. Yeah.
And he's a CPA. He gives if there were an 11 on the 10 scale, I would give him an 11. He gives the world's best presentation on this, to the point where he starts off by saying, okay, in an hour, I'm going to shake you and wake you up, or something to that effect. But it can get a little bit dry. But he points out all the crazy things you just talked about, that the Missouri Ethics Commission, these people are, I don't want to make it sound like negative, but they're nitpickers, to the point where something like this is just blatant violation. Now, here's the crazy question. Are these people who are on this board, are they personally responsible for this money?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question, Brad. I believe so. I believe that the 5 people are, and now look, it's 20 grand. And I mean, well, I don't know what kind of, I'm assuming each of them could write a check and cover it and take the hit. But I don't know. I mean, maybe they don't have 20 grand sitting around to write a check. I don't know. I would hope so, but maybe not, Brad. Go ahead, Brad.
What was the group again, and what were they trying to get, a bond issue passed or something? What were they trying to do?
Well, no, they were trying to elect conservative candidates to office.
I get you. Okay.
I think part of the conundrum here, Brad, and one of the reasons why they drew attention is the group had filed originally as a nonprofit, and under the guise of advocating for business interests. And then after that, they started getting involved. I guess you could say their real mission which was to purportedly elect conservatives to the school board. Frankly, it looks like local liberals down there were pretty skeptical of this and started watching their spending and noticing, Brad, kind of like you mentioned, the kind of stuff that a Mike Summer would point out, which is, you can't just buy a billboard and say candidate X is great or candidate X is terrible, and if it's paid for by committee money, you can't just forget to put the candidate disclaimer on.
Right.
And I don't know. These are the type things that, again, Brad, you've said it here before. If you're running one of these groups, you might think, oh, it's only school board, nobody cares. Au contraire, you better follow the letter of the law here.
Well, and like you pointed out, the problem you're going to run into is the people who are against what you're going to say. They're going to look at this with a fine-tooth comb and go like, okay, hold on a minute. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. Mike Summer, like I said, I have no dealings with Mike other than him and I were on a board together for the Salvation Army. But he's a great guy. But he talks about this all the time. He says, put your paid for on everything. You know what I mean? If you give out business cards, that have like vote for John Combest, it has to have that disclaimer on there that it was paid for by Friends for John Combest, East St. Louis School Board, whatever you're running for.
But one more thing here too, Brad. You know who I feel bad for today? The folks that work at Centene and Humana who do PR. They're getting all kinds of alerts from people in Missouri that say, hey, you see this? Hey, why are you guys funding school board candidates that break the law? Now, suddenly they're going to have to start answering questions. If you're at Centene or Humana, you want to answer questions about health care and what a wonderful job you do providing health care for Americans. And now people are coming to you with questions about a Springfield school board race. Why are you bankrolling people who break the law?
Well, can I give you my read on the Centene thing?
Oh, yeah.
My problem with that is that Centene, as I understand what they do, they basically administer government health care programs. So in other words,
they do. You're right.
They are taking their money, which is your and my taxpayer money, and doing things like this, which I think is wrong. They shouldn't be spending money like this because essentially this is government money. I mean, it's sort of like the deal we talked about. It's almost like the money laundering kind of thing that we get into the thing with National Public Radio, and people go, are the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and NPR says we don't get any money from NPR, from Corporation for Public Broadcasting. But what they don't say is that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting gives the network affiliates, like the KWMUs of the world, money, and then NPR takes the money as payment for programming from KWMU. So in other words, it's sort of like they're laundering the money, if you know what I'm saying. They're cleaning it through the various affiliates. And then say, we don't get any money from the government. It's all through our affiliates. Yeah, but where do the affiliates get the money? From the government. You know what I mean?
Quote a Brad Hildebrand jingle. We are National Public Radio, NPR, where the news is what we say is the news. Brad, when you're talking about radio affiliates, I got a good one at number 2.
Hold it. Can I play that real quick? Let me see if I can find it.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Here, I think this is it. Let me see it. I think this is it. Hold it.
We are National Public Radio, NPR, where the news is what we say is the news.
One of my favorite jingles. I'm sorry, John. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, we on to number 2?
We are.
Up a notch to number 2.
It was such a great weekend, Brad, on one of your favorite radio affiliates that we have to lump 2 stories in for number 2 today. That's right, 93.3. Real Talk 93.3, Brad's very favorite radio station. On Friday, we heard on The Morning Crew with Dan and Drew, Dan Strauss and Drew Shelton. Bill Eigel was a guest on the show, Brad, and you will never guess the role that Eigel played on that show. You want to take a wild guess?
Was he the general manager? Was he trying to sell real estate or something like that?
He was. He got a great deal on a nice ranch in Washmo. No, he was not playing that role. He was playing the role of diplomat, Brad. Holly Jones is part of that morning crew, you know? Bill Eigel was on, and Bill Eigel came, essentially, it appeared, to make peace, to tamp everybody's temper down. Bill Eigel's like a diplomat, Brad. He's like Switzerland. Bill Switzerland Eigel was on there to praise both Holly Jones and Justin Sparks. They're both great conservatives. They're both members of the Freedom Caucus, and we need more of them in Jeff C. That's Bill Eigel's line. Now, Brad, we don't have time to get into all the great nuggets here, but I will tease you, Brad, in that Bill Eigel said that at the beginning of the Freedom Caucus, they all took personality tests, Brad. Can you believe that? They sat down as a caucus and took some personality tests.
I don't. This thing's getting out of control. I mean, it's like, to me, it's some kind of Russian, with the, like it's like the Manchurian Candidate kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's like,
first of all, personally, Brad, I think you just need a purity test because I think you would fail it. Because I heard what some of those girls at Hazelwood High School said about you from the 1970s. But Brad, listen, this is important. Besides Bill Eigel, because I don't want to gloss over the second part too, there's a group, and we teased this a little bit on Friday. There's a group called Shield Maidens. Sorry, it took me a second to think of the name. The Shield Maidens, and that's a woman named Stacey Shore and a woman named Lisa Panette. And they have a show on Saturday. They have a big Facebook presence. They have a show on Tracy's station on Saturday and Sunday. And Brad, they did a call-in when Holly Jones was on the air on Friday, and everything was pretty peaceful, and they talked about what they were going to talk about. And then on Saturday, when they did their show, they talked about those topics, but they also talked about Holly Jones. And they've pretty much had it with Holly Jones. They're tired of her deflecting. They say she keeps changing the subject. She's talking about minor things that don't even matter when she will refuse to answer serious questions. Brad, as I do, I have all the timestamps up today, and you can hear a little bit about what some of these grassroots leaders are saying about Holly Jones and how disappointed they are in her. And they also talked about important things like, I would just flag too, in the energy topic in Missouri, the fact that Google and Meta are moving into Missouri and they want tax breaks on data centers, water rights. They break the news that American Water Company is actually owned by Germans, which I didn't know. And I have a feeling we'll hear from some American water people after the show today. But Brad, a lot of great information from the Shield Maidens, a lot of great information from the morning crew with Dan and Drew. So check it out. I have all the timestamps up. The Friday show, I have a link to that with timestamps on Saturday. The Shield Maiden show, I have the links with the timestamps up today.
Yeah, it's interesting that the three major utilities in the St. Louis area, Ameren and Spire, are publicly traded, but the Missouri City's water company is owned by that German company, and it's a privately held German family, I believe, is who's
It is
behind
not. Nope, it's a public company.
Is it a public company in Germany?
A long time now, Brad.
I thought it was a privately held company. No,
they spun it off many years ago. Okay. It hasn't been a private German company for many years.
But it was once upon a time a private German company.
For a very brief period of time, and then that German company, they acquired American Water, and then they divested it within 2 years, I believe.
You know what I need?
But hey, we can spread whatever rumors we want to. That's fine.
I need to get the Rodney King a quote on this system in here because there's so many times when I will use it. See, this is what's wrong with the Republicans. It's like the infighting crap. The Democrats, they stick together cohesively as one unit. The Republicans are like, well, we've got the rhinos over here and the kinos over here and the gynos over here. It's like, okay, come on. We have to do purity tests. Do you think there's such thing as a purity test for Democrats? No. No way.
I don't know. I think some folks that are pro-Israel or pro-Palestine would say that their party has that. The biggest fight has been over immigration, and that leads us into story number one, Brad.
The number one.
Missouri's own Eric Schmitt was on Fox News Sunday yesterday with the legendary host Shannon Bream, not to be confused with former Pirates and Braves first baseman Sid Bream. But Eric Schmitt was talking about there's this big controversy within the Republican Party about immigration visas, Brad. We'll harken back to what you said 60 seconds ago. Republicans and conservatives and libertarians fighting among themselves. I know we're up against time here, but Schmitt's point is that in 2020, Trump did some stuff on immigration visas and made sure that we were eliminating, according to Schmitt, some of the possibilities for fraud, some of the possibilities that giant corporations would take advantage of this visa program and undercut wages and game the system, essentially. And according to Schmitt, one of the first things Joe Biden did when he was en masse getting rid of Trump orders was he got rid of some of the improvements to this visa program. Now, Schmitt's other point, Brad, is that this is part of the broader argument about immigration. While we're arguing about H-1B visas and things like this, we can't forget that we still need to close the border. We still need to fix what the Biden administration did with Mexican immigrants and with other folks flooding across the Mexico border. So I have a link up to it today. Fox News did a little summary afterwards with the highlights of what Schmitt said. And as you've seen, Brad, it's been a big controversy within the Republican Party, whether, the longtime allegations of if you're against unrestricted immigration, you're clearly a racist. But where do we draw the line and how do we protect American jobs?
Well, a little bit of hold on, come here, boys here. A little bit of context on this is the H-1B visas they're specifically talking about are for very targeted people who, for the most part, are very educated scientists, engineers, and people like that. And the problem we have in the United States with our educational system going to hell in a handbasket, we're not generating that many engineers. And that's the problem because they're trying to get it to a certain extent. It's the same thing in the medical field. I mean, like how many times have you been to a hospital and the doctor is from Iran or from Pakistan or all these other various countries? It's like, okay, we don't crank out enough doctors in the United States. It's the same kind of thing. Not that many people.
I know. Well, that helps. I mean, that's when I exhale. If I have an Asian or an Indian guy, like I don't want a DEI hire for my colonoscopy.
So, no, I won't go there. Okay.
Don't go there, Brad. I know what you're thinking.
No, you don't.
Let's not go there.
No, you don't. Okay, we have to take a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?